Hello, hello, hello. Is this thing on? Coffee in hand. We are ready to look at the studio discography of Genesis. Yeah, this was requested by a viewer. Getting a lot of requests. Just thought I'd do another one whilst we're at it instead of doing a prog review. Do another of these primers because, it's nice to let the words flow from the top of my big bald head. So, where to begin? Where to begin indeed? Back in 1969, the band Genesis were in the clutches of a certain Mr. Jonathan King. We don't like to talk about Jonathan King. Anyway, he produced their first album called Genesis to Revelation. It featured gold lettering on the front and was resigned to the religious section. Is it worth exploring? No. Only one good track on it for my ears, In the Wilderness. It features the band stripped down to guitar, piano, Peter Gabriel singing, a little bit of bass, and King, in his infinite wisdom, stripped the instrumentation from the right channel and replaced it with strings. And so it sounds a bit odd, but anyway. It's been repackaged and re-released so many times. You see it out there. It's often in the bargain bin. Do you remember the bargain bin? Oh, that dates me, doesn't it? But yeah, remember, if you buy a copy of it, the money does go to Jonathan King. So there you go. So we skip forward to Trespass, the kind of the first proper Genesis studio album. I've got a lot of fondness for Trespass because Anthony Phillips is the original guitarist. He's there, and it's it's kind of a half-baked attempt at a Genesis album. They're still forming. There's some nice pastoral stuff on that record which I really enjoy, but you do get the feeling that they're still a very young band. A lot of the character has yet to come through. It starts off with Looking for Someone. Again, it's a nice track. I always remember it well, that track. White Mountain, that's a good one. Visions of Angels, very choral, if I recall. But it's when you get to the B-side, Stagnation. It's where that track, it's one of these pastoral Genesis tracks, which doesn't really go anywhere, but you do get an indication of what's to come. And it's the same with Dusk. Lyrically, you hear where the band is, where they're heading to. Is it worth checking out? Probably not good for the explorer. I mean, I think I listened to them in a strange order when I came to Genesis. I listened to The Lamb first, but I've got good memories of this album, and also it's really good to hear it in surround sound. I did the surround sound remixes a few years back, and that was really nice for me to hear everything separated and everything spread around. And I don't think Anthony Phillips gets enough credit. It's his. If you hear his solo work, you hear him very much on this recording. Then we skip forward a year to Nursery Crime. Things Have Happened. The classic band are in the house, as it were, with Mr. Phil Collins behind the drum kit. Could have been Roger Taylor of Queen. That would have been weird, wouldn't it? And a certain Stephen Hackett spanking the plank. Nursery Crime, it was good at the time. There's a lot of big hitters on there, but I don't love it as much as I used to. And this comes from hearing the surround sound mix, because when you hear it all stripped back, you realise there's not a lot there. There's not a lot of instrumentation there. It's almost, it's, well, you've got to hear it to understand what I mean. Whereas Trespass and the subsequent albums, there's lots of layers, and Genesis is one of these bands that, did, a few overdubs on things, and everything was, there was a really big sound palette. And with Nursery Crime, you realise that there wasn't a lot going on. But it could have been because there were new people joined, and again they were still finding their style. It's got all the classics on there. Musical Box, of course, a live. Again, that is such a brilliant live song. The album version kind of is a bit anemic in comparison. Always love For Absent Friends, one of those really small songs, and you hear Gabriel and Phil Collins' voice intermingling. Just love that song. Giant Hogweed, yeah, good fun. Seven Stones, never had much time for. Harold the Barrel, yeah. Harley Quinn, and Fountain of Salamis it's big. I love the bass playing on that. Just love it. Just love that record. But I've kind of, maybe I need to go back and listen to it again. Foxtrot. Well, this used to be my favourite record. This used to be my favourite Genesis record at one point. I mean, they've all been my favourite record at one point. I mean, of course, you've got Watcher of the Skies with that amazing opening. I mean, what kind of band, takes, puts the opening track, and it just takes so long to start up with all that, it's really, just, that's crazy. It just takes so long to start, but when it arrives, it's, brilliant. The single cut of Watcher of the Skies is pretty good fun too. I always enjoy that. Timetable, not much, I've not really got much time for that one. Get 'em Out by Friday. Again, familiarity breeds contempt, I'm afraid. Used to like it, but I like Can Utility and the Coastliners more because it's a real jazzy thing. And when the band hits the instrumental break towards the end, everything's just kind of chugging along. Horizons, again, familiarity breeds contempt. Heard it so many times. Supper's Ready. Well, it's the archetypal Genesis track, isn't it, really? Lots of bits of songs spliced together. Good fun. Lots of it's very, very British. That's what I like about it. Very, very, very British band and album. But Selling by the Pound, 1973. I think this is the archetypal Genesis album. This is the one you want to start with, I believe. Again, because of its Britishness, it captures a moment. It's very much a moment of its time, of England's political history. The cover by Betty Swanwick. It's I just think it's a whole package. You've got Dancing with the Moon at Night. I know what I like the hit single. Wow, they had a hit single. Firth of Fifth, More For Me. Never liked that song. Battle of Epping Forest. Again, they're very dense lyrics. I think the band even complained about that song. They had a very good instrumental work, and then Gable decided to squirt a load of lyrics all over it. But I like it because it mentions Epping Forest. I live near Epping Forest, and it speaks in my language. So after the ordeal, again, that was a strange one. It always felt a bit clunky at the time, and took me a long time to love it. And I actually heard Steve Hackett perform it with his band. I think he did it with his acoustic trio, and he did a version of it, and it just was really good. Often overlooked, and I think it's worth looking at. Cinema Show, classic stuff, and the whole three. I mean, people talk about Phil Collins ruining the band, but it was Collins, Banks and Rutherford that did the end section of the Cinema Show. They also did the Apocalypse in 9/8 thing, them jamming together, and some of the best bits of Genesis were created by those guys before the other fellows buggered off. And rounded off with Isle of Plenty. Can you spot all the supermarket names in the lyrics? Only the Brits will get this. The Americans, you don't stand a chance. But yeah, I love that record. It's probably the strongest cohesive album of theirs in that period. Then we come to The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I've already done a prog review of that, so go and look. I think it's prog review 10 or something. Go and have a look at that. That was the first Genesis album I bought. It nearly blew my poor 15-year-old brain. I think it was 15. Cool. Would I recommend it as a first album? No. No. But I think again it's strong material. But the surround sound version with the slides are just absolutely excellent. Get that. 76, all change. It's Gabriel out, Collins in. Oh, I know a lot of people love Trick of the Tail. I resisted it for many years. I actually didn't buy it for many years and laid off of it. And then I came to it, and I like bits of it. I Dance on a Volcano, Entangled, Squonk, heard too many times, Madman Moon, Ripples, I quite like that, and Los Endos, it's all right, but some of the stuff, and again the probably one of the strongest tracks, It's Yourself, which is a B-side, wasn't even on the record, and that's a shame because I actually like that a lot more than some of the tracks on it. But I know it's regarded by many as a top Genesis album. I think it's probably one to give to your girlfriend, if you want them to get into that period. This is followed by Wind and Wuthering. For me, a much more satisfying recording. It's more cinematic, more romantic. The guitars are there. 11th Earl of Mars, good fun. One for the Vine is Tony Banks doing what Tony Banks does. In a special way. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. What Gorilla, bit of a waste of time. All in the Masses Night. I don't know why they bothered. But then you hit the last section of the album, Blood on the Rooftops, which is probably one of the best songs the band has ever done. It puts even thinking about it, it puts the goosebumps up on my neck. And when I hear Hackett's band do it with their drummer, I wish I could remember his name, but when I hear him singing it, it's a great song. And then you've got Unquiet Slumbers for Sleepers, In That Quiet Earth, and Afterglow, and it all, it's good, and it's a good swan song for Mr. Hackett, because then there were 3 in 1978. Again, this is one of those albums where I resisted it, mainly again because it's that transitionary period. I didn't want to like it. I didn't want to like it at all, and for a long time I didn't like. But then with the remasters and the remix and the surround sound version, much more satisfying. It really needed to be remixed and remastered. It really did need it, and it's a lot stronger record for me. Down and Out, I think, is absolutely fantastic, and Mike Rutherford obviously got custody of Steve Hackett's guitar pedals. Undertow, great song. Ballad of Big, their obsession with cowboys, I didn't really enjoy. Snowbound, now that song gives me the creeps. Listen to the lyrics. It's about being encased in ice, falling asleep in the snow, and people putting the children making you into a snowman. It's probably the most terrifying lyric ever made. It haunts me. Burning Rope's good fun. Deep in the Mother Lode, again. Many Too Many. I quite like that one. Scenes from a Night's Dream's good fun. Again, it kind of echoes back to the comedic songs of previous Genesis years with Little Nemo. Say It's Alright, Joe. Lady Lies. God, yeah. Again, that one. Took me a long time to get it, and then one day the penny dropped, and I just thought it was a really good song. Follow You, Follow Me. Again, it's one of those ones where you've heard it to death, but I really like the rhythm guitar. That again Rutherford came up with the dun, 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 dun. It's just his guitar playing he's one of these underrated guitarists. He does a lot of good rhythm guitar. Invisible Touch, we'll talk about that in the future. And the synths, there's a synth line actually played by him on the guitar synth, I believe. So there you go. Next up is Duke. Again, Duke is one of those records that everybody loves. and I don't. You see, I don't get it. I mean, I get half of it, but then I don't get the other half of it, because I know it's been said that there was this like kind of concept, you know, of Duke and Duchess and blah blah blah, and the band didn't want it to be like another Supper's Ready and glue everything back together, but they should have done, because by splitting up the songs, and it kind of dilutes the power of the music. You know, Behind These Lines, Duchess guy vocal, very strong material. You know, Duke's Travels, Duke's End, also strong. They should all be on the one side, and the other songs should be on the other side. Not a big fan of Misunderstanding. God, please help me in the video. Oh, Jesus wept. Heat Haze. Oh, again, the songs that by Tony Banks on this record, I just don't get. I really don't get them. But everybody rates the record. The remix that came out in 2007, I thought did a good job. Again, the surround sound version, especially the Duke's suite, is absolutely stonking. It's just really, really powerful stuff. But it's not one of my favourites, but you can always recommend it to your pals who want to get into later Genesis. And then 1981, Abacab. Now you'd think that because I'm not a big fan of Duke, I wouldn't like Abacab. Au contraire, I find Abacab a much more satisfying prospect, because it's a more modern sound. You know, okay, it's a bit poppy. I have no issue with pop songs. I think pop songs are a valid format. I like songs that you can whistle, you know. I have no issue with popular music. There's nothing wrong with being popular, even in progressive rock, you know. And this record, for me, has got it all, you know. I like the opening track. No Reply at All is just fantastic, you know. Me and Sarah Jane, Keep It Dark. Loved that, and I loved the video. And then on the B-side, Dodo, Lurker, you know. Now, if that ain't prog, I don't know what is. Who Done It? Hilarious. Think of it as the modern version of Harold the Barrel, you know, that kind. Again, back they like kind of self-referencing. It's that comedy from previous years. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people say it's the worst song they've ever done. I think it's good fun. It's a bit punky. It's a bit, you know, weird, and I think it's really good fun. Man on the Corner, you know, nice ballad. Like It or Not, yeah, and another record. Yeah, the last three tracks are a little bit weak, you know. We're heading into, you know, MOR, you know, middle of the road, but hey, that's progress. That's moving on. One thing you can't complain about with Genesis is they change, they evolve, or some of you may say devolve, but I like the fact that they're continually doing different things. Then we're on to the self-titled Genesis, or Shapes, or whatever you call it. Now for me, this is a bit like Duke. It's one of those records, it's a game of two halves. The first side, very strong, you know, Mama, That's All, Home by the Sea. Yeah, I get it, good stuff. But the second side, Illegal Alien, again, it's a funny single, you know, funny comedy song. And then the next four tracks, it wouldn't bother me if I never heard them again, especially Silver fucking Rainbow. I mean, what the fuck were they smoking when they made that song? And then they go all soul with It's Gonna Get Better. Excuse me? They're Brits, for Christ's sake. They've got no soul, only on the bottom of their feet. And then a much maligned album. It's 1986. 1986 was a very, very big year for Genesis. And, you know, I remember it well. It was I remember that album cover being everywhere. You know, every Woolworths you went in, every WH Smith's, every record shop, you know, it was there. And what people tend to forget, right, because 1986 was kind of the year of Genesis, because in May, Peter Gabriel had So out, and that was big. Yeah, we had Sledgehammer, the Dancing Chickens, and then in June of the same year we had Invisible Touch and all the singles off of that. So for me, as a Genesis fan and a Peter Gabriel fan, I was in absolute seventh heaven. I thought it was great, you know. We were represented, even though a lot of people maligned Invisible Touch. Again, familiarity breeds contempt, and I, you know, at the time I thought it was an interesting pop album. You know, there was a lot of pop stuff on there, but there's also a lot of proggy stuff. You know, Tonight, Domino, of course, and the Brazilian. I mean, the Brazilian is probably one of the most proggy things of the 80s. Yeah, I mean, it's, you listen to that with all its, you know, electronic percussion and swirling synths. It's really, you know, probably a bit dated now, but I like it. But what made me love this album more was hearing it in 5.1 surround sound. For when you hear it in 5.1 surround sound, you really get to appreciate the rhythm guitar of Mike Rutherford and the picking style that he was using at that time. He was kind of picking out notes and that. I mean, he'd used it similarly on other tracks, but on this album it's much more prevalent. And I just thought it was really interesting to hear. I've never, you know, you don't hear that kind of style of guitar playing, and again at that time it didn't sound like guitar, it sounded more percussive, and so I kind of fell in love with the album again. Even though it's maligned, it's one of those ones you've got to check out, especially for the people who aren't into prog and you want to get them in. You know, slip my copy of Invisible Touch, no under plain cover, you know, there you go. So yeah, I've got a lot of time for it. A lot of you are probably slapping your foreheads, and you know, but hey. We Can't Dance, it's 1991. Now, again, I remember when this came out, this was a big album. There was a lot of publicity around at the time. And the problem with this record is it suffers from that disease that a lot of records in the late 80s, early 90s, well, and the 90s suffered with, is we've got a CD, we can pack it with as much music as we can, and so they put 71 minutes 31 seconds on it, and they didn't need to do that. In that record there is a good album, but you need to drop about 4 or 5 of the songs out. So if you want the perfect version of We Can't Dance, you just keep these songs: No Son of Mine, Jesus He Knows Me, Driving the Last Spike, Dreaming While You Sleep, Living Forever, Fading Lights. There you go, and you've got the perfect version of that record. Of course, you don't call it, you know, you leave I Can't Dance off it and call it something else. You call it Fading Lights or Father and Son, which I believe was one of the early working titles, hence the cover. See, the actual album cover makes no relation to the title, because they were going to call it Father and Son, and then they bottled it. Anyway, it's quite good fun hearing it in surround sound. Not essential, because it's, you know, one of those modern records. You know, it doesn't really benefit from the surround sound mix, if I recall. You know, I put it on the not so essential end of my list. And then, oh god, now we're in dangerous territory. It's 1997. The band, they don't know what to do. Phil Collins, he's gone off to write Tarzan and do other stuff, and Banks and Rutherford, you know, they're looking at each other, and they managed to con some, you know, naive Scottish fellow down, Ray, poor old Ray Wilson, and they record Calling All Stations. Again, at the time I remember being very excited by it, because again I knew Ray Wilson from his work with Stiltskin and Outside, which was the big hit with the jeans commercial and that, and you know, he had a pretty gutsy voice, and I could see how that people were making comparisons between him and Peter Gabriel. And there were various, you know, TV specials and promotions, and I quite enjoyed Congo when it came out as a single. And I remember rushing over to my local Woolworths the day of release, Luckily, I wasn't working that day. I had the day off because I worked to the weekend. And I rushed over to Woolworths at 9 o'clock. Seriously, no word of a lie. As they were opening, I went in there, bought it, came home. And within about an hour later, I was utterly disappointed by it. I mean, it's a great shame. It really is. Again, it needed a decent producer working on it. And, you know, it was a case of there being too much stuff on there. I mean, it runs for 1 hour, 7 minutes and 42 seconds, for Christ's sake. Excuse me? There's no need for that. There's some good bits on there, you know, I quite like Congo. I quite like Not About Us and Shipwreck. They're quite two good ballads. Dividing Line's good fun. Bits of There Must Be Some Other Way and One Man's Fool. You know, they're quite satisfying. You can almost see that there's potential. I mean, if they'd done a second album, it may have been, you know, a lot better. Again, the SACD/DVD remix doesn't really add much to the proceedings. Doesn't really, you know. Is it worth checking out? Not really. No, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother buying it. Sorry, it's not really a Genesis record, is it? Should we agree on that? It isn't. It isn't. It's a missed opportunity. I think they should have let them do a second album, and then we'd reappraise this album. And but anyway, so that's it. Those are the studio albums of Genesis. So hopefully you can go off now and you can. Oh, I suppose you might want a list. I've got to come up with some sort of order. Well, I'd say go with. Now I'm going to do it by era. Okay, I'm going to choose. I'm going to mess around with this because I'm going to say Selling by the Pound for the Gable era. For the latter Collins era, I'm going to go with Wind and Wuthering. Yeah, I've still got Hackett in. Abacab, Invisible Touch. That should cover it. Yeah, no? You're probably going to disagree. But hey, I think you can't go wrong with those albums. I think that gives the broadest representation of the record, of the band. You know, if you throw Trespass in there as well, you know, then you're getting somewhere. And then for advanced listeners, you listen to The Lamb and Foxtrot and the rest of them. So that's the studio albums. The live albums, you know, Seconds Out is probably one of the best live albums ever made. You know, in terms of the production quality and the songs. Genesis Live, the original live record. You know, you only get a hint of what the band are about. It's a real shame. It should have been a double album, and I think it was originally slated to be a double album, but they put it in the mid price range, and so it was one album, and it should have been a double. And you know, it's well recorded though for the time. That's the good thing about it. And then what's it? Then there's that We Can't Dance stuff, which is not really worth checking out. And then there's the various box sets. You know, Archive Collection. That's pretty good. You know. Archive Collection 2, not so good because it's all B-sides and 12-inch remixes. She seemed to have an invisible touch. Ah, 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 ooh, ooh, ooh. You listen to that for 12 minutes. Anyway, I've probably bored you witless again, so I'm gonna finish my coffee. And wind up. My name has been Darren Locke, and I've been burbling on with bloodshot eyes and bulging buggy eyes. And you've had the patience and misfortune to sit through this nonsense for another, how long's it been? Nearly 30 minutes. You poor bastards. And hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought. Again, comment yes, no, up and down, thumbs up, thumbs down, tell your granny, and we'll do this again soon. Only one more thing to say. Are you ready? Prog on. Or shall I do it in the style of Invisible Touch? Prog on, prog on, prog on, prog on, prog on, prog on. That's a bit different. 12-inch mega mix? I don't think so. John Patoka, he rules. Ta-ta.